If you want to do the least amount of work color grading or adjusting colors in your videos in post-production, then you've come to the right video. I'm going to teach you how to create your perfect picture profile that's tailored to exactly what you like. The problem I have seen with other picture profile videos is that they just make a blanket recommendation that doesn't necessarily cater to what you like. So instead, in this video, I'm going to show you all the presets available so you can see the difference between them. And then at the end, we're actually going to create a custom profile together, and you'll see what I like, and it might be something you want for yourself. So with all that covered, let's get started. So first off, let's define what a picture profile is. If you're unfamiliar with this setting, if you go into your camera's menus, you should see at some point picture profiles. And these are essentially presets that your camera can create for your videos or photos. If you ever use like an Instagram filter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They apply sharpness, contrast, saturation, and other features to your image so that it's baked in and you don't have to do much post-processing later. However, most of the time, the default camera setting isn't that great, and I actually really recommend adjusting it, which is what we're gonna do next. But first, let's go through each picture profile so you can actually see the difference between them, and I'll have the settings next to each image so you can kind of get a sense for what is being adjusted, and then we'll go into creating our own together. So with that, here are the previews. So as you can see, the picture styles do have a pretty decent impact on the final outlook of your videos. Standard adds a lot of saturation and sharpness to the image to really make it pop. Portrait does something weird to the skin tones. It's supposed to make it look more pleasing, but for whatever reason, I think it adds a little too much of that orange/yellow tint, and I actually don't really like this one. As for landscape, it adds a lot of sharpness. I think it's +5. And it does a really good job of holding colors. I actually prefer the colors on landscape than I do on portrait. Specifically, Canon says that it adds more punchiness to the greens and the blues in the image, which makes sense because that's predominantly what you're going to see outside when you're talking about skies and, you know, green pastures and stuff like that. And neutral does a good job of actually slightly, ever so slightly, reducing saturation and contrast, which allows you to actually adjust the picture more in post. But I know that's not exactly what you want to do. You want to get the best colors straight out of camera. Lastly, monochrome does exactly what you'd expect it to, which is just make the image black and white. And this is something I would really never recommend doing, just because once you bake this in, you can't undo it. You simply can just reduce the saturation in post and get a black and white look. So I don't really see the use for monochrome. So we're just gonna completely ignore that one from now on. Now the real question is, which profile do you like? Because depending on the one you prefer, that's the one we're gonna actually model our custom profile off of and just make tweaks from there. So let's get started with a concrete example. Although portrait is meant for humans, it doesn't do a good job in my opinion. So I actually would base my custom preset off of landscape. Now we can adjust all the parameters here. I think 5 sharpness is just a little bit too sharp for my liking. So I actually would go something either 4 or 3. I'm gonna go with 4 in this case. Next we have contrast, which actually sort of dictates the difference between the darkest parts of our image and the lightest parts. So if you punch contrast all the way up, you'll see your blacks are really black and then your whites or the bright parts are really white. Whereas if you reduce the contrast, everything sort of goes towards the middle and ends up being never super dark or never super bright. But because we don't want to do anything in post, we would not reduce the contrast. In fact, we may leave it at 0 or maybe add 1 or 2. I'm gonna add 1. Next, we have saturation, which is simply the intensity of the colors. So if you really want that sort of vibrant look in your videos, I would increase the saturation to a level that you find suitable. Just know that it's very easy to go too far with this. So I highly recommend actually going probably incrementally up 1 by 1 till you find the one you like. Lastly, we have color tone, which is actually meant to adjust the yellow and red shift, which is mainly for skin tones. So if you move this to the right, which is adding, you're gonna add more yellow to the skin tones. And if you go to the negative side, you're going to add more red. I believe when I was looking at landscape, I think maybe I can add some yellow or red. It's kind of hard for me to say without looking directly at the images, but I'll show you what the final image looks like here and the settings that I chose for that. And there you have it. Now, with all these parameters adjusted, you just simply select it for your picture profile, and you can go ahead shooting knowing that you have the exact sharpness, contrast, and color in your videos without having to do any color grading in post. Although this is a great starting point for doing videos, ultimately you're not going to be taking the best advantage of your camera if you're using standard picture profiles. Instead, what you really need to do is use log picture profiles, which is a whole separate topic that I go over in this video. It is more advanced and it's going to require more steps from you, but if that's something that is important to you when it comes to image quality, then it's definitely worth checking out. Thank you for watching all the way until the end. I really appreciate it. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comment section down below and I'll happily help you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.